A strange, massive portal opens above the city, a labyrinth confirmed in the heart of Shibuya. As soldiers try to control the panicked crowds, in the chaos, a young girl is nearly trampled. Her eyes fixed on the terrifying object in the sky, and the military begins to mobilize its forces. Helicopters circle the strange, pulsing anomaly. And then something begins to emerge. A massive, armored beast crashes to the ground. Its glowing eye scans the terrified city. This military takes aim, preparing to fire, but a soldier warns that civilians are still in the line of fire. This captain makes a hard choice. They must engage, ordering all vehicles to open fire on the creature. This first shell is fired, a massive blast of light engulfing the monster in a fiery explosion. Smoke and debris fill the air, but the creature emerges from the smoke completely unscathed. Its core begins to glow with an intense purple light. The soldiers realize their weapons are useless. Staring in disbelief and horror, this monster locks onto its target, gathering a massive amount of energy and unleashes a devastating energy beam. This blast vaporizes the military vehicles instantly, a soldier's face reflecting the blinding light, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. This city street erupts in a massive explosion. Panic intensifies as people scream and run for their lives, but the portal remains open, a constant threat, revealing that these enemies are immune to modern weapons. And now more creatures begin to pour out, a swarm of smaller, faster monsters descending on the crowd. They dive into the chaos, attacking indiscriminately. This young girl is caught in the middle of the stampede and she falls hard onto the pavement. A monster looms over her, ready to strike, its sharp claws just inches from her face, but then a flash of blue light cuts it down, and the girl braces for an impact that never comes. A young man with a glowing sword stands over her, her eyes wide with shock and confusion. His weapon hums with an unknown power, a weapon capable of defeating the enemy. His gaze is sharp, focused, and ready for a fight. He turns to the girl with a confident smirk, asking if she's okay. She can only stare back, completely stunned, as her mysterious savior stands before her. Suddenly, debris crashes down nearby, reminding them both the danger is far from over. He smirks, noticing her stare at his glowing eye. As even more powerful monsters begin to descend, but he just winks, completely unfazed by the threat. Another creature unleashes a devastating energy beam, and he quickly shields the girl from the blast. He explains his eye is just a little special, revealing an intricate, glowing sigil within it. This girl is terrified, overwhelmed by the chaos, peeking through her fingers at her protector, her fear turning into stunned disbelief. Suddenly, a car is hurled right at them, and his special eye activates once more. A golden ring of light appears, freezing the car in place. Suspending it just moments from impact, he reveals the name of his power, the Chronostasi's Eye. This girl can't believe what she's seeing. A heads-up display appears in his vision, showing a targeting system and a life count. This counter shows his remaining lifespan is 26 years, a strange countdown ticking away his life. But he ignores it, focusing on the enemy ahead. This cost of his power is revealed, his own lifespan. A system message confirms 30 days have been spent, and his weapon begins to reload its cartridge. A power gauge rapidly fills to maximum, his eye glowing with immense energy. This weapon is now fully charged, humming with power, and he takes a moment to aim, gathering charged particles for a single, perfect shot. This system confirms the particles are focused. He's ready to fire at any moment. His sight locks onto a massive new target. He grins, ready to take the monster's life. He unleashes a devastating blast of red energy, aiming it directly at the frozen car. This car explodes, becoming a projectile itself, sending flaming shrapnel straight at the creature. This monster is completely engulfed in the explosion, its form dissolving under the intense energy. He watches as his attack obliterates the enemy. He stands victorious, the immediate threat neutralized. His expression is cold and focused, and the system confirms another enemy destroyed. But his life count has suddenly increased to 33 years. This girl trembles, staring at her savior, and he turns to check on her again. He offers a confident, reassuring smile, but the fight isn't over yet. Another monster dives down, and he spins around to intercept it. He scoops up the girl, leaping to safety just in time. A blue-haired woman lands gracefully on the street, announcing that her team has cleared their sector, telling him that reliable comrades are essential. This little girl stares up, still clutching her toe. As he kneels down to meet her gaze, she asks him for his name, and he just offers a gentle smile. This team stands ready amidst the destruction, his expression hardening for the fight ahead. These are the warriors who fight the enemy, and the girl watches her savior prepare to leave. This is the story of how he becomes the strongest raider. He turns and walks toward the ominous portal. This scene shifts to a dark alley at night, where a young man is thrown to the ground, his attackers mocking him relentlessly. He is Megami Tendo, a 16-year-old high schooler, and he curses his terrible luck. This thugs consider if they've gone too far, but their leader is just getting started until they all freeze, hearing footsteps approach. A lone figure emerges from the darkness, a silver-haired man in a pristine white uniform. This thugs recognize him instantly, Japan's strongest, and he gives them a single, cold command to move. They panic, thinking he's about to kill them all, their bravado completely gone. This man walks past them without a second glance, and Tendo looks up, whispering the name Ryuji. Ryuji looks down on him with utter disappointment. He turns his back, leaving Tendo behind in the alley. This thugs realize the rumors were true, mocking Tendo as the failure brother of a genius. Tendo grits his teeth, filled with shame and anger as they even insult the girl who walks with his brother. Ryuji walks away with his blue-haired comrade, who glances back with a neutral expression. Tendo can only watch them go, defeated, as the bullies continue to loom over him. His brother's shadow is a constant weight on his shoulders. We flash back further to a sunlit field where a young Tendo chases after another boy, his face bright with a joyful grin. His eyes reflect a perfect, happy day until a massive, dark portal rips open the sky. Tendo's smile vanishes, replaced by sheer terror. As the ground itself begins to shatter beneath them, his face contorts in a silent scream, watching his friend fall into the darkness, a hand reaching out just moments too late. That day, the labyrinth returned to his life, and Tendo is found in a hospital wrapped in a shock blanket, his eyes still wide with the horror he witnessed. This news reports a single boy survived the incident, but the trauma is etched onto his face. He remembers being helpless, doing nothing but crying as his friend was swallowed by the darkness years later. Tendo walks through a crowded hall, passing a poster of his famous brother Ryuji. He keeps his head down, living in that hero's shadow. As other students whisper behind his back, this praise for his brother was a constant reminder of his own failure. He stops before the poster, unable to escape the comparison, his hands clenched in silent frustration, which brings us back to the alley where he's beaten down again, hating himself for being too weak to even fight back. He lies on the ground, utterly defeated, unable to stand up to the thugs around him, but then one of them points to the sky, and Tendo's eye reflects a terrifying, familiar sight. A massive purple portal tears open above them, sending the bullies scrambling in pure terror. He can only stare, recognizing the labyrinth's return. A single drop of dark energy falls from the rift, and black tendrils erupt from the point of impact. Tendo tries to crawl away, his heart pounding, but the strange darkness moves faster. Latching onto him, pulling him in, it consumes his leg, dragging him down into the pavement. Suddenly, a system interface appears, analyzing his body, confirming a new Conqueror registration. This process completes, showing a reflection of his brother. A message flashes before his eyes. Welcome to the Labyrinth. He's pulled through a swirling vortex of blue light and awakens on a cold, hard floor. He's inside a vast, pillared hall. A labyrinth. Something has changed. His eye now glows with a blue sigil, and a heads-up display targets another survivor. It shows a life count. 69 years remaining. Tendo stares in complete disbelief. As the others around him begin to panic, seeing the same thing, he looks around, trying to process the impossible, his vision locking onto others, each with their own countdown. He can't understand what's happening to him until someone points toward the end of the hall. Two strange, monolithic containers stand waiting. Tendo cautiously approaches the mysterious objects, and they begin to activate with a faint blue glow. One of them opens, revealing a sword inside, a weapon waiting for someone to claim it. Tendo reaches out, realizing it's a weapon, but one of the bullies smirks from behind him, eyeing the powerful-looking sword for himself. He shoves Tendo aside, grabbing the blade first, but then stops, confused by a strange sound, as Tendo claims the other sword for himself. Suddenly, a voice speaks directly into his mind, revealing the cost to claim the weapon. A staggering 30 years of his life. This bully swings his new sword, demanding Tendo's too, and Tendo's eye targets him, showing a life count of 83 years. In an instant, the bully's lifespan drops to 53 years. Tendo realizes the horrifying truth of the countdown. As the bully boasts he'll become the strongest, even stronger than Tendo's own brother, Ryuji, but a flash of pink energy slices through the air, and everyone watches in stunned silence. This bully is struck down from behind, impaled by a monstrous, shadowy claw. Tendo's eyes widen in absolute terror. As the creature tears the bully apart, he can only stare, frozen by the brutal display. As the first enemy reveals its terrifying form, this monster's claw swings towards him next, and more creatures descend upon the other survivors. Tendo looks on, completely overwhelmed by the chaos, his vision locking onto a fallen student. This student's life count hits 0. He finally understands. The numbers are real. This monsters swarm the panicked crowd, and one, stained from its first kill, turns to him. Tendo looks up, trapped and terrified, clutching the sword he just paid for with his life. This system confirms the trade. Claymore for 30 years, leaving his own life count at just 39 years. He screams, realizing he's completely screwed, wishing he could take back his choice. He's backed into a dead end with nowhere left to run. This monster closes in, ready to strike, and he raises the sword, hoping it can fight back. He grips the hilt with both hands, his face a mask of desperation and rage. He swings the blade with all his might, and the weapon connects with a sharp clang, but his eyes widen in horror. This monster is completely unscathed, hovering above. It dives down for the final blow, its claw piercing straight through his shoulder. He hits the ground hard, bleeding and defeated. Tendo grits his teeth, consumed by agony, a single tear of despair rolling down his cheek. But in a flash of blue, a figure intervenes, his brother Ryuji, his gaze cold and sharp. He stands over Tendo, his own sword drawn, looking down with an unreadable expression. Tendo can only whisper his brother's name as Ryuji's hand rests on his glowing weapon. He tells his brother to die in a ditch somewhere, turning his back on him completely. Suddenly, ethereal swords materialize in the air, summoned by Ryuji's power. He tells Tendo to stay behind him, his blade crackling. His focus shifting to the monsters ahead, Tendo stares, completely stunned by the command, weakly telling his brother to stop. This creature swarmed the other terrified survivors, but Ryuji is already a blur of motion, striking down a monster in an instant. He moves like lightning, a whirlwind of blue energy. His expression one of pure, deadly focus. Tendo watches as another creature is cut down. His face a mask of utter shock. Ryuji gives him one last command. Live, Tendo is left alone in the vast hall. As his brother single-handedly takes on the horde, he carves through their ranks with impossible speed, effortlessly dodging their desperate attacks. His blade dances, clearing a path of destruction, a master of combat in his element. Tendo looks on, a new light in his eyes as Ryuji stands victorious among the fallen. This scene shifts to Berlin, Germany, where a massive, egg-like portal hangs in the sky. Another appears over New York City, and a third looms over Rio de Janeiro. Research teams study the aftermath of their arrival. As Ryuji leads Tendo and the others to safety, a narration explains the first truth. The enemy will eventually spill out. This threat is absolute unless the labyrinth is cleared. This second truth. Special powers can only be found inside. And the third. Those who enter are called raiders. Ryuji walks ahead, a silent leader, and Tendo watches him, trying to understand. His brother turns, his expression serious, explaining that raider isn't a job title, but a new state of being, their bodies rewritten by the labyrinth. Tendo listens, the impossible truth sinking in, recalling the system messages he saw earlier. He looks at his hand. Then at the display, his life count now 37 years. Ryuji glances down, unimpressed by the question, as Tendo stares back, still processing the cost of healing, and his brother takes a step forward to explain, revealing that a raider's wounds heal by consuming their lifespan. Tendo looks down at his own leg. Now completely healed, this gash from the monster's claw vanishing into thin air, and he realizes it happened before he even noticed. Ryuji continues his grim lesson, stating that once your lifespan hits zero, you die. Tendo listens, the weight of this new reality sinking in, learning that more serious injuries burn more years. But Ryuji's gaze shifts, sensing a new threat approaching, and he raises his sword, ready for another fight. More monsters descend from the ceiling, and Tendo shouts out a warning. Ryuji is already in motion, a blur of blue light cutting through the creatures with blinding speed. Tendo can only watch, completely stunned, as his brother wipes them all out in an instant. Ryuji explains the other side of the system. Killing enemies grants you more life. He gestures to the glowing red core of a fallen monster, and Tendo scoffs, unable to imagine ever being that strong. His system targets Ryuji, revealing a life count of over 189 years, meaning his brother has killed an unbelievable number of monsters. Tendo looks at him with newfound respect. As Ryuji states that people die without someone strong to protect them, Tendo agrees, gripping his own sword with resolve. These two brothers stand with the other survivors, a silent understanding passing between them. They lead the way down the long, empty hall toward a glowing purple portal, their exit. This survivors cheer, believing they can finally escape, but Ryuji grabs Tendo, stopping him in his tracks. A monster suddenly lunges from the portal's light, its massive claw blocking their only way out. But then another warrior appears, the blue-haired woman from before, and she greets Ryuji, glad to see him safe. She reports that she's secured all the civilians she could find. As Ryuji and Tendo look on, Tendo recognizes her from the alley and awkwardly asks if she's Ryuji's girlfriend. This question is met with a stunned silence from them both, and Ryuji quickly apologizes for his brother's comment. This woman turns her head, her expression unreadable, while Tendo stammers, flustered by his own question. He tries to introduce himself with a nervous smile, but she just calls him creepy, questioning his fake grin. Ryuji cuts in, asking Tendo how many enemies he faced, noting that the number seems far too low, and he looks around, a bad feeling settling in. Ryuji tells the woman to stay with Tendo, leaving our boy completely bewildered. As his brother vanishes into the darkness to scout ahead, Tendo is left standing alone, clutching his sword, while the blue-haired woman announces the exit is clear. He watches the other survivors line up by the portal, but her expression suddenly turns serious, and she calls out to Tendo, telling him to get ready. A massive, shadowy monster crashes down from above, her eyes widening in pure shock. She looks up, facing the new, terrifying enemy, its blade already stained from previous kills. Her face hardens with grim determination, and she leaps into the air to meet the threat. She clashes with the monster in a burst of energy, her glowing sword barely holding back the blow. This creature wields a massive, dark scythe, its armored form towering over her, and it swings down with overwhelming force. Tendo can only watch, frozen in place, as the impact shatters the stone floor. He's thrown back by the powerful shockwave, lost in a cloud of dust and debris. This blue-haired woman lies defeated among the ruins. And Tendo looks up, seeing her fall, a flash of red slices across his face. As the monster appears right behind him, he clutches his eye, blood streaming through his fingers, and the system confirms a facial and eye laceration. He screams in agony, trapped beneath the beast, as his system begins the repair process. His life count instantly drops to 35 years, and the monster raises its scythe for the killing blow. It swings down to end his life, but Ryuji appears, blocking the attack with his own blade. He struggles against the immense pressure as Tendo stares up in disbelief. Ryuji deflects the scythe with a powerful shove, severing the monster's arm in a single fluid motion. His glowing sword cuts through its dark armor, sending the dismembered limb flying. Ryuji glares at the creature, his expression cold, noting it's a humanoid type he's never seen before. He's breathing hard, the effort showing, glancing back at the pile of monsters he already killed. He clutches his own wounded arm, feeling the strain. His ally is still buried beneath the rubble, and his own wound continues to bleed. He drops his shattered visor to the ground, his eyes glowing with renewed power. Tendo watches in shock as Rigi tells him to heal his own arm. Explaining this is the harsh price of being a raider, Tendo's eyes widen, seeing the cost for himself as the system shows Rigi's lifespan plummeting, dropping from 189 years down to 156. He's burning his own life just to heal his wounds, and Ryoji's eyes begin to glow with a terrifying red light. He activates a new ability. CHRONOSTSASI, his pupils transforming into a complex, glowing sigil. This monster looms over them both, ready to strike. As the system confirms the activation of his power, this creature raises its scythe, surrounded by a golden aura, and dives down to finish the fight, but Ryoji's power takes hold, slowing time to crawl. He stands his ground, perfectly calm under pressure. Then dodges the attack with impossible speed. He slides beneath the blade's path, a blur of blue energy, facing the monster that took his arm. His expression is cold, his focus absolute, realizing this enemy is on another level entirely. This monster recovers, its dark form radiating power, and launches itself straight towards Tendo, forcing Ryoji to look back in alarm. He activates his Chronostasis eye once more, as the scythe descends upon his defenseless brother in a flash. Rigi shoves Tendo out of harm's way, sending him tumbling across the floor. Rigi takes his place, becoming the monster's sole target, his glowing red eyes locking onto the threat. This creature swings its scythe in a devastating arc, smashing the ground where he just stood, but Rigi is already there, blocking the blow. He holds it back, declaring the fight is with him. Tendo can only watch the impossible battle unfold, still sitting among the rubble and dust. He struggles to comprehend what he's seeing. As the monster suddenly begins to transform, its body erupting with golden rings of power, Tendo watches, stunned by its incredible speed. As the powered-up creature overwhelms Ryoji is thrown back, struggling to keep up, and Tendo can't believe what he's seeing. This monster presses its attack, relentless and brutal, but Ryoji's gaze remains unbroken. He parries another deadly strike from the scythe, and Tendo notices his brother's glowing eye. Realizing he's using that strange power again, this system confirms it. The monster's arm is regenerating, and Ryoji's life count continues to drain away, ticking down from 156 to 155 years. Tendo stares at his brother's glowing eye, completely powerless to help. Ryoji clashes with the monster once more, his blade striking the creature's glowing core, and he finally cracks its armor. But it's not enough, realizing he can't land a final blow with one arm. This monster crouches, gathering golden energy, unleashing a whip of dark power that Ryoji barely dodges. Tendo watches in absolute terror as his brother is finally pushed to his knees. He realizes Ryoji might actually die here and grips his sword, knowing he has to do something, but doubt floods his mind. How could he possibly help? Feeling like a useless burden in this fight, Ryoji struggles to hold his ground, glancing back at his brother standing far away. Tendo feels small and weak, convinced he's nothing compared to his strong brother. He decides the only thing he can do is run, turning to escape and save himself. But then he sees her, the blue-haired woman in the rubble, and his system shows she's still alive. With 39 years left, she groans, barely conscious among the stones, and Tendo's eyes widen with a new understanding. He realizes Ryoji wasn't just protecting him, he was fighting to save her life too. This monster looms over a weakened Ryoji, who screams at Tendo to keep going to get out. Tendo grits his teeth, his expression changing, and DECIDES he can't just stand by and do nothing. Ryoji unleashes a massive wave of energy, clashing directly with the monster's scythe. His attack lands, shattering its red core, and the two opponents lock eyes for a final showdown. This creature roars, its body pulsing with power, unleashing a storm of dark, shadowy tendrils. Ryoji is caught in the onslaught, desperately defending, his face a mask of pure, unyielding determination. This scene suddenly shifts to a memory, a sunny forest where a young Tendo tells his brother to knock down a beehive. A 7-year-old Ryoji trembles with fear as other kids push him forward, daring him to do it. They mock him, calling him a crybaby, but are suddenly hit by a sticky substance. A voice tells them to leave his little brother alone, and it's a 7-year-old Tendo standing up to the bullies. They cry out, covered in honey, as young Tendo stands ready for a fight. He's the one who knocked down the hive, leaving the bullies completely stunned. This bullies scream, running from the swarm of bees as they flee deeper into the forest. Young Tendo laughs, calling out to his big bro, a confident grin on his face. Little Ryoji looks up at him in total admiration, and Tendo remembers always wanting to be that strong. This memory fades, returning to Ryoji's desperate fight, slicing through the monster's shadowy tails. He dodges through the storm of attacks, his Chronostasis eye burning with power. He's surrounded by the dark tendrils, but he parries every single blow. He grits his teeth, pushing through the pain as the system shows his arm is still repairing. His life count continues to drop. From 153 to 152 years, his glowing eye reveals the terrible cost of his power, knowing the monster's core is about to shatter. But landing the final hit won't be easy. This creature is just too fast. Ryoji deflects another strike with his arm. Twisting away from a golden ring tail, he dodges again, barely avoiding the blow. Realizing he's frozen most of the tails in time, that means there's only one left, and the monster gathers its remaining power. Ryoji knows this is his only chance to win, facing down the beast in a final standoff. He prepares to finish this fight. Tendo remembers being weak and helpless, cornered by a terrifying shadow, but a hooded figure reached out to save him, and he realizes it was his brother, Ryuji. Ryuji's eyes were filled with concern as they escaped through a closing door. Tendo recalls his brother's endless training, shattering practice dummies with raw determination. Ryuji sits exhausted among the broken wood, his body pushed to its absolute limit. Now an adult, he wears an eye patch, his gaze hardened by countless battles. His chronostasi's eye glows with resolve, and Tendo finally makes his move. He charges forward, sword in hand, declaring that this time he'll be the one who protects someone. This system targets Ryuji's arm. Announcing the repair is finally complete, Ryuji catches his sword with his healed hand, but a shadow rises from the ground and a hidden tendril impales him from behind. This hidden tendril pierces straight through his back, his eyes widening in pure shock and agony, and he's thrown across the room by the brutal attack. But his glowing eye refuses to fade, still burning with power, his ability freezing the monster in its tracks. Ryuji collapses to the ground, barely conscious. His vision completely obscured by blood, this system confirms his chronostasis is now unavailable, leaving him helpless on the cold stone floor. He lies there, utterly broken by the fight. As the system detects a massive heat source from the enemy, this monster's core glows with a menacing purple light, and Ryuji can only watch from the ground. A memory flashes through his mind. His younger brothers smile as Tendo's eyes burn with a new resolve. His fear is gone, replaced by fierce determination. Seeing his chance while the monster is distracted, his focus becomes absolute, his target clear, and he leaps into the air, sword held high. Tendo lets out a desperate battle cry as Ryuji watches in stunned disbelief. Our boy dives straight for the creature's core, finally ready to face his fears head-on, but the monster prepares a devastating counterattack, unleashing a massive beam of purple energy. Tendo is caught directly in its path, staring up at the overwhelming, blinding light. He knows there's no way to dodge it, but Ryuji suddenly throws himself in front of the blast. He takes the full force of the attack to save his brother, this impact nearly shattering Tendo's sword. This shockwave sends Tendo flying backward, but he grits his teeth, refusing to give up. This monster's core pulses with malevolent power, and Ryuji falls from the sky, mortally wounded. Tendo catches him just before he hits the ground, screaming his brother's name in absolute despair. He holds Ryuji's broken body, the monster looming behind them. Tendo clutches the glowing core he managed to grab, desperately trying to wake his brother up. This system shows Ryuji's life count is critical, his lifespan plummeting with every passing second. Ryuji manages to speak, his voice weak, telling Tendo he never truly accepted him. His chronostasi's eye flares with a final burst of power, saying Tendo chose his own path of weakness. He screams that he'll never accept his brother's fear. And with his last words, his body goes limp. Tendo stares, completely shattered by the loss, his brother's final, desperate command echoing in his mind. Ryuji's last words tell him to go straight ahead, remembering how he'd always laugh in the end and snatch victory away from his enemies. He tells Tendo to remember who he once was, and Tendo's world completely shatters, his vision blurs with tears and grief. As a burning sensation erupts in his left eye, a system window appears, initiating a transfer, and Tendo sees it reflected in his own eye. Ryuji lies on the ground, his life fading, his glowing red eye finally dimming. Tendo watches in horror as the transfer begins, screaming for it to stop, but Ryuji's voice echoes that regret changes nothing, and Tendo cries out his brother's name with his final breath. Ryuji tells him not to lose as Tendo holds his brother's limp body. Ryuji's eye goes dark, his life finally gone. This system confirms the transfer is complete. Tendo looks up, facing the monster alone. As the creature flexes its deadly claws, it lets out a triumphant, monstrous roar and lunges forward to finish the job, descending upon the grieving boy. But Tendo's system reveals his new power, identifying the Regulus weapon No. 1. Chronostasis. This ability stops time for a target, but at a terrible cost. Nearby, the blue-haired woman begins to stir, pushing herself up from the rubble. She clutches her head, dazed and confused, her eyes widening in sudden alarm. She sees the monster diving toward Tendo. Closing in for the final, fatal blow, she lets out a desperate shout, throwing her dagger with all her might. This blade flies through the air, a last-ditch effort, but the monster deflects it with a ring of golden energy. This dagger shatters into pieces, completely useless. Tendo reaches out a bloodied hand, kneeling over his brother's body in despair. He sees a sword frozen in time, a golden aura around it, and his eye glows with a fierce red light. He charges the monster with impossible speed, grabbing the time-locked sword from the air. He faces the beast, his brother's power now his own, activating the chronostasi's eye. With a roar of pure rage, he grips the hilt and plunges the blade deep into the monster's core. This creature is impaled, its attack completely stopped. As a massive blast of energy erupts from its chest, this monster is consumed by a blinding flash of light. As Tendo drives the sword home with all his might and leaps back from the resulting blast, this creature's core shatters into a million pieces, sending our boy flying across the cracked floor. He struggles to his feet, sword still in hand. As the room is engulfed in a final, massive explosion, then an eerie silence falls over the chamber. Tendo looks up, breathing heavily, the fight finally over, his new chronostasis eye glowing with residual power. His gaze immediately falls on his brother's body, and the reality of his loss crashes down on him. He stands over Ryuji, completely alone now, his victory feeling utterly hollow. He collapses to his knees beside his fallen brother. Tears of grief and rage streaming down his face, he kneels in the dust, clutching the sword. As the blue-haired woman approaches from behind, Tendo lets out a raw, desperate scream for Ryuji, and wakes up, bolting upright in his bed. He reaches out into the sunlit room, confused, panting as he tries to catch his breath. His alarm clock shows it's morning. And he tries to wash away the nightmare in the shower. His reflection reveals his mismatched eyes. It wasn't a dream. A system window flickers over his hand, confirming the power he inherited is real. He walks into his apartment, drying his hair with a towel, trying to process what just happened. A voice calls out Ryuji, and Tendo freezes, seeing a white-haired man holding a bag. Tendo stares, completely stunned and confused, as the man with the eye patch looks back at him. This man's hand moves slightly before he turns and walks away without another word. Tendo is left standing alone in the hallway, his mind racing with impossible questions. He hears the front door open and rushes to see who it is. It's the blue-haired woman from the fight, and Tendo demands to know why she's here. She just stares back at him, a faint blush on her cheeks. She offers him a plate of omelet rice, mumbling something he can't quite hear. They sit at the table, and she decides to eat it herself, taking a small, hesitant bite. Tendo's eyes lock onto a logo on her uniform, and she suddenly kicks him to the ground, revealing a squad of soldiers ready to attack. These soldiers identify themselves as clothes, and Tendo glares back, his eye burning with power. She reveals he's the brother of a Captain Megami, her expression cold and unyielding. She declares she'll take full responsibility for this. As her squad looks on in confusion, she holds up a tattered, bloody uniform, and Tendo is pinned to the ground. This woman turns her back, leaving him behind. This scene shifts back to the apartment, where he asks if she always does the cooking. He's still trying to understand the situation, and she just looks back at him. His eyes drift to a photo of him and Ryuji, and her expression softens with sadness. She begins to explain something important, telling him about the organization called Close. It's a government agency for licensed raiders. A faint smile on her face. Tendo listens, processing the new information. He asks if she believes in aliens, and she compliments his sharp instincts. He points out that government bodies need more than ideals, and her gaze turns serious once more. A tense silence hangs between them, revealing that a pillar of Japan has fallen, and somehow he's at the center of it all. Their eyes meet, the weight of the moment clear. Tendo tries to lighten the mood with a smile, but she points directly at him, telling him his eye is no ordinary weapon. It's a Regulus weapon, a power of immense scale. Her stare is intense, demanding he understand as she explains the sacrifice his brother made. A flash of Ryuji's final moments appears, and Tendo clenches his fist in silent grief. She watches him, her own expression unreadable. She warns that more people will have to die now, and Tendo looks up, horrified. She explains that defeating an enemy transfers its life force. A system window confirms it. His lifespan is now 35 years. He realizes Ryuji's sacrifice was all for nothing. Slamming his fist on the table in rage, she watches his outburst, her face grim. Then she asks him a critical question: will he become a national raider? She explains it means diving into labyrinths, facing the same dangers his brother did. He looks down, refusing the offer completely. He remembers his brother, who gave up everything, a memory of Ryuji broken and bloodied, and Tendo's eyes burn with a new fire. He sees his brother's final moments again, this pain and resolve etched on his face. Ryuji lies defeated on the ground, his life slipping away with every breath. Tendo accepts the burden his brother left him, his expression hardening with purpose. He turns away from the window, his decision made. This image of his brother's sacrifice is seared into his mind. He remembers the happy times they once shared, his gaze now filled with grim determination. He faces the blue-haired woman, declaring he'll take his brother's place. This time he won't run away. She agrees to his terms with a small smile and immediately slaps a pair of cuffs on him. She holds up the key, looking pleased with herself, leaving Tendo completely stunned by the betrayal. This scene shifts to a car speeding down a highway. Tendo sits in the back, now a prisoner of clothes, his mismatched eyes scanning his surroundings. He looks at his cuffed hands with a wry smile. As she tells him it's just standard procedure, their destination is close headquarters. And Tendo seems almost excited by the news. She asks if he feels tricked, calling it a voluntary choice, but he just glares back at her. This driver glances back, confused by their bickering. He's a close transport officer, under orders to bring them in. Tendo realizes this is a high-security transport. While the woman remains cool and collected, this driver keeps a close eye on his new passenger. This blue-haired woman closes her eyes for a moment as the driver adjusts his glasses. Focused on the road, Tendo quietly accepts his new reality. Suddenly, an urgent alert flashes through the car. Enemies have breached a labyrinth at Naruma base. Vicious, insect-like monsters are on the loose. This alert confirming the location of the attack. Tendo stares at the console, his eyes wide with alarm. Time is running out. This woman notes the terrible timing of the attack as the driver slams on the gas and swerves, throwing Tendo across the back seat. He and the woman exchange a panicked look, and he demands to know where they're going. She explains that labyrinths eventually overflow with monsters. And Tendo listens, the danger becoming terrifyingly real. He struggles against his restraints as she braces for impact. She warns that they're running out of time as a chopper flies over the massive containment walls. Alien creatures swarm from a dark breach, one unleashing a deadly beam of energy. This swarm descends upon the city, raining down destruction. Investigators open fire on the invaders, but their forces are quickly being overrun. One of the creatures impales an agent. As their car screeches to a halt in the ruined city, Tendo sees the Narima evacuation zone firsthand. This driver pulls a hard stop on the deserted street, and the woman steps out ready for action. She confirms the base's walls have been breached. Using a scope, she surveys the chaos, seeing soldiers swarmed by sheer numbers. Her face hardens at the sight of the losing battle. She turns back to Tendo, her plan forming, explaining this area was evacuated a decade ago. Tendo offers to help, but she shuts him down, reminding him he's just a civilian who needs to evacuate. He stares back, completely stunned by her dismissal. She warns that using his Regulus weapon is forbidden, as another soldier's power goes wild in the distance. She stares Tendo down, making her point clear. He recalls the terrible cost of his power, looking down at his cuffs in frustration. She slams the door, calling out to the driver. Tendo screams for them to wait, but she's already charging her own ability. A blast of crackling blue energy erupts from her, shattering the car's windows around Tendo. This attack surges toward the enemy lines, and the shockwave throws our boy across the seat. This driver glances back, shocked by the power. Tendo pushes himself up, still restrained. His gaze locks onto the battle outside. A monster closing in on the blue-haired woman, her defensive shield begins to shatter, leaving her stunned and defenseless. This creature looms over her for the final blow. Suddenly, the car door flies open and Tendo rolls out onto the asphalt. This driver screams at him to get back, but he's already running toward the danger. He charges forward, his mind made up. He has no other choice. His decision is made. His chronostasi's eye flares to life. Ready for battle.